Hi everyone, welcome to Formulating for Going Darker, meaning all things pre-pigment. Maybe we don't always know how to successfully execute it, but it's also something that can feel a bit of a drag if it's adding any time to your service. It feels like an extra service. So today we are going to talk all about the importance of it and that it really is considered a color correction and should be thought of like that when charging. So first, let's just jump straight in to the absolute most important part, to the meat of the class today, which is our level system chart. So I'm sure you are all aware of the level system, from 2 being the darkest because the level 1 doesn't really have an underlying pigment. Right when you start lifting from that level 1 to that level 2, then you start to expose things. So 2 being the absolute darkest brown before you get to black, all the way up to 10 being the very lightest blonde. And then we're gonna go from there to exactly what those names are, to what their underlying pigment is, and then what their counteractive tone is. So we're going to take a moment here on this level system chart before we get into our formulations and before we get into our really deep discussion about all of the how-tos. So here we are at level 10, the lightest blonde, whose underlying pigment is pale yellow, which can easily be balanced with like even the quickest, palest violets. But even at a level 10, you're going to see a very small amount of pale yellow. And that's where you might have heard before the inside of a banana. So we want to talk about that because the texture, the porosity of the hair, that's very, very important to what you're formulating later on is going to be. So if they're at a level 7, medium blonde, you're looking at lots of orange gold in the hair, and you're going to need a little bit more blue to counterbalance that orange. When the naked eye looks at it, it definitely looks at a level 6, I would say light brown. It's acting a little bit more like it's in this category and on the top half of the level chart versus the bottom half. So it's up for debate, level 6, if it's dark blonde or light brown. But it looks light brown, but acts more like it's in this category of the top part of the chart. And then this one, just your average texture hair, took that pigment exactly the way that it was meant to, and it looks like a level 6. And then the coarser hair looks like it's a little bit lighter because the pigment density, like the weight of the pigment, was the same in all of the different textures, but obviously once it got into those different textures of hair, what looked like a completely different level. If they have really coarse hair, if I wanted a level 6, I might have to use a level 5. So if I go back to this part of my chart, if I use a level 6 on coarse hair, it might look like a level 7. If I use the level 6 on fine hair, it might look like a level 5. So I need to grab for a level 7 on fine hair, and I need to grab for a level 5 on coarser hair. So just like I used that glass, the hair in the glass example, we know that more porous hair, or the more porous that the hair is, the more it's going to absorb that color. So you are dyeing them twice. I would charge hourly, but you might just want to charge them for 2 solid colors, right? So you want to have that discussion, but the reason being is that they're going to get so much more longevity that it's almost like 2 appointments in one. But if we go here and we want to definitely replace the orange gold, but she wants kind of an ashy brown or a neutral brown at a level 5 or 6, and you really feel the need to pre-pigment before going down to like a level 4, then you easily just go from 7 to 4. Boom, what's in the middle of that? Right here, it would be like orange and red orange. So lots of orange, more red, and then you can go down to like that neutral level 4 because now you have something that's a really, really solid base. Now you can actually go in with a 6, like maybe with a little bit of gray to it. You can add a little bit of ash. Even if they're wanting a neutral, you're gonna say the first time you might see some traces of warmth in there if you're really concerned about the porosity of their hair. And the funny thing is even the client that's terrified of warmth, sometimes they see their hair that copper and they're like, oh, it doesn't look that bad. So actually, if you try to pre-pigment and also try to color the hair sometimes with permanent hair color, you won't have the same longevity because it's not sealing off that cuticle. So it's all like your level 10, 9, 8, 7, 6 that live over here on that warmer spectrum, and that's what you have to choose from. So I know we talked about on the level system. So from a level 10 to a level 6, you're gonna need lots of orange and lots of golds. So you'll grab your level 8s, your level 7s, and you're gonna incorporate lots of orange and lots of gold. Orange meaning copper. You could intermix a little bit of, you know, your 835, which is your gold red violet, but it looks a little bit more browned out. You really have to know your tonalities, your directions, but I use every single one of these in my pre-pigmenting formulas. So you're like sealing down their blonde and evening out the porosity that way, making that pH come down a bit before you even pre-color their hair. And then also, depending on the porosity, the texture, and all of that, and then their desired target shade, you can choose your formula. So I know that's a lot, but that's every time you're formulating. You're thinking about the porosity of their hair. You're thinking about, and that's going to change what level you choose. And then you're thinking about the tonal direction, keeping it from going too cool. And I'm going to make sure I replace all of those pigments. And then I'm gonna lean a little bit more towards this or a little bit more towards that. Like her natural color is very healthy and shiny. So I definitely had to do a different formula there for my end desired look than what I did on the ends. So I pulled that color all the way from roots through ends after I pre-pigmented. And I only had to pre-pigment on that blonde area, which was a natural level 10, 9. And yeah, I just definitely hope you enjoy the actual application of this entire process.
So the reason I'm only applying this to her mids through ends is that there really isn't anything to fill in all of that natural hair that she had. So when you go to apply the rich brown tones, it'll come out definitely more evenly, just like how we talked about that foundation that you're building when you're building a house. And here, okay, I'm applying a level 7, which isn't far off from the base all over, but I just wanted that as her hair faded, it had a little bit of natural dimension around her face. And then the stroke 7-1 is a warm brown with a bit of a gray undertones. I went through on the rest of her hair, and most of her formula was just 6-stroke-0, which is a 6-stroke natural one. So the stroke 7-1 is mimicking that warm with a little bit of cool tones that I did through those highlighted areas. So it was 20 grams, 8-stroke-4-3, 20 grams, 7-stroke-3. Then I did 10 grams of 7-stroke-7-3 and 5 grams of 8-stroke-3-5. It was all with 6 volume and color touch. But just to kind of reiterate why I did this, it was because we wanted to fill in that level 8 and that level 7 that was missing. So I did 8-stroke-4-3, which is predominantly red and then gold, but mixed with the 7-stroke-3, which is at a level 7 more golds, you're going to get a lot of that copper showing through. And then the other 2 colors that I wanted to just balance the formula out with was 7-stroke-7-3, so that bit of warm brown and gold, and then 8-stroke-3-5, which is gold with just a tiny bit of red violet. So you have so much room for creativity and room to play within those formulas, but you gotta just remember that what you're replacing, why you're intermixing certain things, what that end goal is. So I'm looking for something that is just a little bit warm so you can see some of that warmth show through. I think she was born to be a brunette, And I just think it makes her eyes pop. And she was definitely happy to see herself in this new color after years and years of being blonde.